The summer breeze off the Oregon coast should have felt like freedom, but as I stood on the porch of my parents' beach house in Lincoln City, it carried only the bitter taste of rejection. It was July 2025, and I'd driven 4 hours from Portland with my kids, Emma, 14, and Noah, 11, for what was supposed to be a family vacation. Instead, I was packing our bags 2 days early, my hands shaking with anger and hurt. My parents, Richard and Linda, had just told me to leave to make room for their golden grandchild, Sophie, and her entourage of summer camp friends. My kids, apparently, were less important. I'm Alex, 40, a single parent who spent the last decade building a life for Emma and Noah after their dad bailed when Noah was barely walking. I run a small bakery in Portland, scraping by on custom cake orders and early morning coffee rushes. It's not glamorous, but it's ours. My parents, though, have never seen it that way. To them, I'm the disappointment, the kid who didn't go to college, who got pregnant young, who chose a hard life. Meanwhile, my older sister Claire, 45, is their pride and joy. Married to a corporate lawyer, living in a Lake Oswego mansion, and raising Sophie, the 6-year-old prodigy they can't stop bragging about. The beach house had been a family tradition since I was a kid, 2 weeks every summer, all of us crammed into its creaky rooms, laughing over board games and sunburns. But this year, things felt off from the moment we arrived. Mom fawned over Sophie's debate team trophies, while Dad grilled me about my failing business. Claire, all fake smiles and designer sunglasses, kept dropping hints about how Sophie needed space to grow. I brushed it off, thinking it was just their usual favoritism, until yesterday. Emma had been in the living room, teaching Noah how to play Uno, when Mom pulled me aside. "Alex, we need to talk," she said, her voice clipped. "Sophie's bringing some friends from her leadership camp tomorrow. It's a big deal for her future networking, you know. We need the guest rooms." I blinked, confused. "Okay, we can shuffle things around. Emma and Noah can share—" "No, Alex," she interrupted, her eyes avoiding mine. "It's better if you and the kids head back to Portland. There's just not enough space." My stomach dropped. "You're kicking us out? For Sophie's friends?" Dad overheard and joined in, his tone gruff. "Don't make this a thing, Alex. Sophie's got opportunities you can't imagine. You and the kids will be fine." I stood there, stunned, as Emma's laughter from the living room went quiet. She'd heard them. My 4-year-old daughter, who'd spent the day building sandcastles with her brother, had just heard her grandparents say she wasn't worth the space. Noah, oblivious, kept shuffling cards. But Emma's eyes met mine, and the hurt in them cut deeper than any words. That night, I barely slept. I lay on the lumpy guest bed, Emma and Noah curled up in sleeping bags on the floor, and replayed every moment of my parents' dismissal. Claire hadn't even bothered to weigh in. She was too busy texting Sophie's camp counselor about logistics. I thought about all the times I'd swallowed their favoritism. The Christmas when Sophie got a new laptop while Emma and Noah got used books. The birthdays when Mom and Dad flew to Claire's house but sent my kids a $20 check. I told myself it didn't matter, that I could love my kids enough to make up for it. But this was a line they couldn't uncross. The next morning, as we packed the car, Emma was quiet, her usual spark dimmed. Noah kept asking, "Why do we have to go, Mom, Dad?" I didn't have an answer that wouldn't break his heart, so I just hugged him and said, "We'll have our own vacation soon, buddy." Claire waved us off with a breezy, "See you at the next family thing," while Mom pressed a crumpled $100 bill into my hand, for gas. Dad didn't even come outside. As we drove back to Portland, the weight of it all settled in. My parents had chosen Sophie again over my kids, over me. But something else was brewing. Something I hadn't told anyone. A week before the trip, I'd gotten a letter from a lawyer in Seattle. A distant great-aunt, someone I'd met maybe twice, had passed away and left me her estate, a beachfront property in Cannon Beach, valued at $5 million. I hadn't processed it yet, hadn't even told Emma or Noah. The lawyer said it was mine to sell, keep, or develop, and I'd been sitting on the news, unsure what it meant for us. But now, Driving down Highway 101 with my kids' hurt faces in the rearview mirror, I knew what it meant. It was power. Power to change our lives, to protect Emma and Noah, to make my parents and Claire face what they'd done. I'd spent years begging for their scraps, love, attention, respect, no more. If they thought they could push my kids aside for their golden grandchild, they were about to learn how wrong they were. Back in Portland, I tucked Emma and Noah into their beds, promising a better tomorrow. Emma, still quiet, hugged me tightly. "They don't care about us, do they?" she whispered. I kissed her forehead, my heart aching. "They're wrong, Emma. You and Noah are everything. And I'm going to make sure everyone knows it." The next day, I called Jamie, my best friend and a real estate agent who'd been with me through every struggle. "I need your help," I said, my voice steady for the first time in days. "I inherited a property worth $5 million, and I'm going to use it to teach my family a lesson." Jamie's jaw practically hit the floor when I told her the details. "Alex, this is huge. But what's the plan? You're not just gonna sell it and move on, are you?" "No," I said, a plan forming in my mind. "I'm going to test them. I'll pretend I need their help. Financial, emotional, whatever. I want to see if they'll step up for me and the kids, or if they'll choose Sophie again. And when they show their true colors, I'll make sure they regret it." Jamie grinned, her eyes glinting with mischief. "You're scary when you're mad, Alex." "I'm in." As I hung up, I looked at the lawyer's letter on my kitchen table, the deed to the Cannon Beach property staring back at me. My parents thought they could erase my kids from their lives for Sophie's sake. But they didn't know about the $5 million in my pocket, or the fire in my heart. I was done being the family doormat. It was time for them to pay. The drive back to Portland had left a raw ache in my chest, but the real pain hit when I saw Emma and Noah trying to act like everything was fine. Emma, usually so talkative, spent the next few days glued to her sketchbook, her pencil scratching out dark, jagged lines. Noah kept asking when we'd see Grandma and Grandpa again, his small voice breaking my heart. I wanted to shield them from the truth that my parents, Richard and Linda, had chosen their golden grandchild, Sophie, over them without a second thought. But the truth was clawing its way out, and so was my anger. A week after the beach house fiasco, my parents invited us to a family dinner at their Portland home, a sprawling craftsman they'd bought after Dad retired from his accounting firm. I almost declined, still stinging from their dismissal, but something stopped me. Maybe it was the $5 million Cannon Beach property burning a hole in my conscience. Or maybe it was the need to see just how deep their favoritism ran. Either way, I loaded Emma and Noah into the car, promising them ice cream afterward to soften the blow of whatever was coming. The dinner was a masterclass in pretense. Claire, my older sister, was there with Sophie, both dressed like they'd stepped out of a magazine. Claire's blonde hair was perfect, her smile a calculated mix of charm and superiority. Sophie, 16 and polished, chatted about her debate team victories while Mom hung on her every word. Dad, pouring wine, kept nodding like Sophie was delivering a TED Talk. Emma and Noah sat quietly, picking at their plates, their presence barely acknowledged. "Sophie's been accepted to an elite leadership academy," Claire announced, her voice dripping with pride. "It's expensive, but worth it for her future." Mom beamed, reaching over to squeeze Sophie's hand. "We're so proud of you, sweetheart. You're going places." I felt Emma tense beside me. Noah looked at his plate, his fork still. I cleared my throat. "That's great, Sophie," I said, forcing a smile. Emma's art was just featured in her school's gallery, and Noah's soccer team made the playoffs. Mom's smile flickered. "That's nice, Alex," she said. But her eyes slid back to Sophie. "Dad didn't even look up." Claire smirked, sipping her wine. "Art and soccer are cute, Alex, but Sophie's building a real career." The words hit like a slap. I gripped my fork, my knuckles white, but kept my voice calm. "They're kids, Claire. They're doing their best. She shrugged, her eyes cold. Some kids have more potential than others. You know how it is. Noah's head snapped up, his eyes wide. Why do you always talk like we're not here? He blurted, his voice trembling. The table went silent. Emma grabbed his hand under the table, her face pale. Mom's lips pursed, and Dad coughed, clearly uncomfortable. Claire laughed, a sharp, dismissive sound. Oh, Noah, don't be so sensitive. We're just talking about Sophie's opportunities. I wanted to scream, to flip the table and call them out for treating my kids like afterthoughts, but I didn't. Not yet. I needed to know more, needed to see how far their favoritism went, so I swallowed my rage and changed the subject, asking about Dad's garden like nothing had happened. But Emma's silence and Noah's slumped shoulders burned into me, fueling something darker. Later, as we cleared the table, I overheard Mom and Claire in the kitchen. I'd stepped out to grab Noah's jacket, but their voices carried through the open door. Sophie's academy costs a fortune, Claire was saying, her tone low. But I told them we'd cover it. They're dipping into the heirloom fund, Mom sighed. I wish Alex would get their act together. We can't keep bailing them out, too. My blood ran cold. The heirloom fund family jewelry and antiques, including my grandmother's sapphire ring, promised to me years ago was supposed to be split evenly between Claire and me. Now they were selling it to fund Sophie's academy? And Mom thought I was the one needing a bailout? I slipped back to the dining room, my heart pounding. Claire had always been the favorite, but this was a new low. She was manipulating our parents, draining their savings for Sophie, while they dismissed my kids as lesser. And Dad, always the enabler, was going along with it. That night, back at our cramped Portland apartment, I tucked Noah into bed. Grandma and Grandpa love you. I lied, kissing his forehead. They're just busy. He nodded, but his eyes were wet. Emma, curled up on the couch, wasn't so easy to comfort. They don't care about us, Mom, Dad, she said, her voice flat. They never have. I sat beside her, my throat tight. They're wrong, Emma. You and Noah are my world. And I'm going to make sure they see that. She looked at me, her eyes searching. What are you going to do? I didn't have the full plan yet. But the $5 million property was my trump card. I'd inherited it from Great Aunt Evelyn, a woman I barely knew but who'd seen something in me worth rewarding. The lawyer's letter sat in my desk drawer, a reminder of the power I now held. I could sell the property, invest it, or turn it into something bigger, but first, I'd use it to test my family. The next day, I called Jamie, my real estate agent friend, and told her everything. The beach house eviction, the dinner, the heirloom fund. Her jaw dropped when I mentioned the $5 million property. Alex, this changes everything, she said. You could sell it and start fresh. Why mess with your family? Because they hurt my kids, I said, my voice hard. I need to know if they'll ever choose us over Claire and Sophie, and if they don't, I'm going to make them regret it. Jamie didn't argue. Okay, but we do this smart. What's the plan? I'm going to pretend I'm in trouble, I said. I'll tell them the bakery's failing, that I need their help to save it. If they step up, great. If they don't, I'll use the property to expose them. I sent text to Mom, Dad, and Claire that night. The bakery's in trouble. I might lose it. Can we talk about some help? For Emma and Noah, Mom replied with a vague, we'll see what we can do. Dad didn't respond. Claire's text was a knife. Maybe if you'd planned better, you wouldn't be in this mess. Sophie's academy is eating up our resources. I stared at Claire's words, my hands shaking. They'd chosen Sophie again without hesitation. But they didn't know about the $5 million sitting in my name, or the fire they'd lit in me. I wasn't their doormat anymore. I was Alex, the parent who'd fight for their kids, no matter the cost. And I was ready to make them pay. The sting of Claire's text. Maybe if you'd planned better, you wouldn't be in this mess burned in my mind as I sat at my kitchen table, the lawyer's letter about the $5 million Cannon Beach property staring back at me. My parents' dismissal at the beach house and Claire's smug superiority at dinner had pushed me past hurt into something sharper: resolve. They'd chosen Sophie, their golden grandchild, over Emma and Noah, and now I knew they were funding her future with money that should have been mine. But I wasn't just going to call them out. I was going to make them expose themselves. I needed proof-hard evidence of their favoritism and Claire's manipulation. So, I called Jamie, my real estate agent friend, who'd already proven she was all in on my plan. "I need a private investigator," I told her over coffee at a Portland cafe, the hum of conversation masking our words. "Someone who can dig into my parents' finances and Claire's schemes. I want to know everything." Jamie's eyes lit up. "You're going full detective, Alex. I know a guy, Mike. He's discreet, thorough, and doesn't come cheap. You sure about this?" I nodded, thinking of the $5 million property. "Money's not an issue. I need the truth." By the next day, Jamie had connected me with Mike, a gruff ex-cop with a knack for uncovering secrets. I wired him a $4,000 retainer from the small advance I'd gotten on the property's appraisal, feeling a strange thrill at spending money I'd never had before. I told him to focus on 3 things: the heirloom fund Mom mentioned, Claire's financial dealings, and Sophie's leadership academy. I had a hunch it wasn't as innocent as Claire made it sound. While Mike worked, I crafted the first part of my plan. I'd already tested my family by pretending the bakery was failing, and their responses, Mom's vague promise, Dad's silence, Claire's cruel jab, had confirmed their priorities. Now, I'd take it further. I'd dangle the Cannon Beach property as a development opportunity, something irresistible to Claire's greed and my parents' obsession with Sophie's future. But first, I needed to protect Emma and Noah from the fallout. I sat Emma down after school, her sketchbook open to a half-finished drawing of the beach house. "Sweetheart, I owe you an apology," I said, my voice soft. "I haven't been honest about something big." Her eyes narrowed, wary but curious. "What's going on, Mom, Dad?" I took a deep breath. "I inherited a property from Great-Aunt Evelyn. It's worth $5 million. I didn't tell you or Noah because I needed to figure out how to use it, and after what happened at the beach house, I'm going to use it to make things right." Emma's jaw dropped. $5 million? Are you serious?" I showed her the lawyer's letter, the deed, the appraisal. Her eyes scanned the pages, then met mine. "You're going to use it against Grandma and Grandpa, aren't you? And Aunt Claire?" "Not against them," I said carefully. "But to show who they really are. They hurt you and Noah, and I can't let that slide." She nodded, her face hardening. "They made Noah cry. They don't get to do that." Her words steeled me. I didn't tell her the full plan. She didn't need to carry that weight, but her support was enough. I hugged her, promising to keep her and Noah safe, no matter what. Mike's report came in 5 days later, and it was a bombshell. Jamie and I met him at a diner, his folder of documents spread across the table like a crime scene. "Your sister's been busy," he said, sliding me a stack of bank records. "Claire's been funneling money from your parents' accounts into a trust fund for Sophie. Over $80,000 in the past 2 years, most of it from selling family heirlooms, jewelry, antiques, even that sapphire ring you mentioned." My stomach churned. That ring was my grandmother's, promised to me when I turned 18. Mom had sworn it was safe in her safe deposit box. "What about Sophie's academy?" I asked. Mike snorted. "It's no academy. It's a private boarding school in Switzerland costing $60,000 a year. Your parents are covering half, and Claire's skimming the rest from their savings. She's got them convinced it's an investment in Sophie's future." I gripped the table, my vision blurring with anger. My parents were selling our family's legacy to fund Claire's lies, while Emma and Noah got nothing but a $100 bill and a shove out the door. Dad, always the accountant, had to know something was off, but he'd let Claire manipulate them. And Mom? She'd always chosen Claire. But this was betrayal on a new level. "There's more," Mike said, lowering his voice. Claire's husband, Mark, is in on it. He's been using his law firm to set up shell accounts for the trust fund, hiding the money from taxes. It's not illegal yet, but it's shady as hell. I thanked Mike, my mind racing. Jamie leaned in. Alex, this is enough to bury Claire. But what's the play? You can't just confront them. They'll deny everything. I'm not confronting them yet, I said, a plan crystallizing. I'm going to invite them to a business meeting about the Cannon Beach property. I'll say it's a development deal, condos, big profits. I'll ask them to invest, knowing they'll jump at the chance to get richer. And when they do, I'll have them on record, showing their greed. Jamie grinned. You're evil, Alex. I love it. But you need to make it airtight. I can help with the property angle, make it look legit. We spent the next 2 days working with a lawyer friend of Jamie's to set up a fake LLC, Coastal Ventures, tied to the property. I used $10,000 from the advance to hire a designer for a professional proposal, glossy brochures, fake financial projections, the works. I sent emails to Mom, Dad, and Claire. I've inherited a property in Cannon Beach. It's a development opportunity, but I need partners. Can we meet to discuss? I didn't mention the $5 million value, just enough to hook them. Claire replied within minutes. A property? Interesting. Let's talk numbers. Dad was next. Sounds promising, Alex. We'll be there. Mom's response was cautious but curious. I hope this is real, Alex. We'll see. Their eagerness was exactly what I'd expected. Claire saw dollar signs. Dad saw a chance to play businessman, and Mom was just following their lead. But they didn't know I'd already contacted the lawyer to start the sale process for the property, or that I'd hired Mike to keep digging. I wasn't just going to expose their greed, I was going to make sure they felt the consequences. As I finalized the meeting details, Noah came into the kitchen holding a soccer ball. Mom, Dad, are we going to be okay? He asked, his voice small. I knelt down, hugging him tightly. Better than okay, buddy. I'm making sure of it. The $5 million property wasn't just an inheritance, it was leverage. My parents and Claire thought they could push my kids aside for Sophie, but they'd underestimated me. I was done begging for their love. Now, I'd show them what it cost to betray us. The air in my Portland apartment was thick with tension as I set the stage for the family meeting. It was a Saturday afternoon, and I'd transformed our small living room into a makeshift boardroom. A projector hummed on the coffee table, casting fake financial charts for Coastal Ventures onto a bedsheet pinned to the wall. Glossy brochures, paid for with a sliver of the $5 million property's advance, sat neatly stacked, promising riches from a non-existent condo development. A hidden recorder, cleared by Jamie's lawyer friend as legal under Oregon's one-party consent law, nestled in a potted plant. Emma and Noah were at a friend's house, safe from the storm I was about to unleash. This was it, the moment I'd make my parents and Claire face their greed. Claire arrived first, her designer purse swinging as she swept in with Sophie in tow. This better be worth my time, Alex, she said, her eyes flicking over my thrift store furniture with a sneer. Sophie, glued to her phone, barely acknowledged me. Mom and Dad followed, Mom clutching her purse like a shield, Dad's accountant brain already sizing up the opportunity. I greeted them with a practiced smile, hiding the fire in my chest. They'd kicked my kids out for Sophie, sold my grandmother's ring for her, dismissed us as burdens. Today, they'd pay. Thanks for coming, I said, gesturing to the couch and chairs arranged in a semicircle. I've got a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to share. Claire raised an eyebrow, skeptical but intrigued. A property in Cannon Beach? You? Alex? How'd you pull that off? I ignored the jab, launching into the pitch. I inherited a beachfront property from Great-Aunt Evelyn, I said, projecting a map of the lot. It's prime real estate, perfect for luxury condos. I've got a developer interested, but they want local investors. I'm offering you a chance to get in. $20,000 each for a 10% stake. Projected returns are 50% within 2 years. The room buzzed with greed. Dad leaned forward, his eyes gleaming. What's the valuation? Any liens? No liens, valued at $5 million, I said, sliding them each a brochure. The developer's legit Coastal Ventures is fully registered. Everything's in the packet. Mom flipped through the brochure, her caution melting. This sounds promising, Alex. But $20,000 is a lot. It's an investment, I said, locking eyes with her. For family. I thought you'd want to support me. Claire smirked, tossing her hair. I'm in, but only if I can go bigger, say $50,000. You've got cash to cover me, right, Alex? I mean, you're sitting on a gold mine. My blood boiled. She'd mocked my kids, manipulated our parents, and now she thought I'd front her money? No loans, Claire, I said coolly. You bring your own funds. Her smirk faltered, but she recovered. Fine. Mark and I will make it work. Right, Sophie? Sophie nodded absently, still on her phone. Dad was already scribbling notes, muttering about tax benefits. Mom nodded along, swayed by Claire's enthusiasm. They were hooked, just as I'd planned. Then I sprang the trap. Before we sign anything, I said, standing. There's something you need to know. I stopped the recorder, their eyes following my hand but not registering why. I don't need your money. I never did. The property's real. But I sold it last week for $5 million. And I know everything about the heirloom fund. The trust for Sophie. The way you've been bleeding Mom and Dad dry, Claire. The room went silent. Claire's face drained of color. Mom gasped, her hand flying to her mouth. Dad's pen froze. Sophie finally looked up, confused. What are you talking about? Claire snapped, but her voice shook. I opened my laptop, pulling up Mike's report. You sold Grandma's sapphire ring, my ring, for Sophie's boarding school in Switzerland. You've taken $80,000 from Mom and Dad's savings, Claire, hiding it in a trust fund through Mark's shell accounts. And you, I turned to Mom and Dad, you let her, while telling me you couldn't afford to help Emma and Noah. You kicked them out of the beach house for Sophie's friends. You called them less important. I played the recordings. Mom's voice dismissing me at the beach house. Claire's kitchen conversation about the heirloom fund. Dad's silence as Claire mocked my kids at dinner. Their faces crumbled, Claire with rage, Mom with shame, Dad with shock. This investment was a test, I said, my voice steady despite the fire in my chest. You failed. The $5 million is gone, donated to a charity for underprivileged kids, like Emma and Noah were to you. And I'm suing you, Claire, for fraud. The trust fund will be split equally among all the grandchildren, Emma, Noah, and Sophie included. Claire leapt up, her face red. You can't do this. You're stealing Sophie's future. No, I said, stepping closer. You stole my kids' dignity. You sold our family's legacy. Now we're even. Dad found his voice, stammering. Alex, this is extreme. We're family. Family? I cut him off. Family doesn't kick out their grandkids for a better one. Family doesn't lie and steal. Get out. Sophie, wide-eyed, grabbed Claire's arm. Mom, what's going on? Claire ignored her, screaming, You'll regret this, Alex. You're nothing without us. Jamie, who'd been waiting in the kitchen, stepped in. Keep yelling, Claire, and I'll call my lawyer friend right now. Those recordings are admissible. Claire froze, then stormed out, dragging Sophie with her. Mom was crying, her hands shaking. Alex, I didn't know. You did, I said, my voice cold. You chose Claire every time. Go. Dad helped Mom up, his face a mask of guilt and anger. They left without another word. As the door slammed, I sank onto the couch, the recorder still in my hand. My heart was racing, but I felt lighter than I had in years. They'd shown their true colors: greed, favoritism, betrayal, and I'd made them face it. Jamie sat beside me, handing me a glass of water. You okay, Alex? I nodded, a small smile breaking through. Yeah, I did it for Emma and Noah. The fight wasn't over, I still had to tell my kids the truth, and the lawsuit against Claire would be messy. But for the first time, I felt in control. My parents and Claire thought they could erase my kids from their lives, but they'd underestimated me. The $5 million wasn't just money, it was justice. And I'd made sure they felt its weight. The aftermath of the family meeting felt like the quiet after a bomb blast. My apartment, once a battleground for my parents and Claire's greed, was now just home again, small, cluttered, but ours. The recorder sat silent on the coffee table, its evidence of their betrayal locked inside, ready for the lawsuit against Claire. I'd exposed them, donated the $5 million from the Cannon Beach property to a charity for kids like Emma and Noah, and reclaimed our dignity. But as I sat on the couch, the weight of what came next pressed down. I had to tell my kids the truth, and I had to figure out what family meant now. Jamie stayed late, helping me process. You were a force, Alex, she said, pouring us tea from my chipped kettle. But what's the plan now? Emma and Noah deserve to know. I nodded, my throat tight. I'm telling them tomorrow. They've been through enough lies. The next morning, I took Emma and Noah to our favorite park in Portland, the one with the rickety swings they loved as kids. The August sun was warm, and I watched them kick at the gravel, their faces a mix of curiosity and caution. I'd kept them in the dark too long, shielding them from the family's toxicity and my own plans. No more. Guys, I need to tell you something big, I began, sitting on a bench. I inherited a property from Great-Aunt Evelyn worth $5 million. I sold it, but I didn't tell you because I needed to protect us. Grandma, Grandpa, and Aunt Claire, they've been choosing Sophie over you for years. And I had to make them see what they'd done. Emma's eyes widened. $5 million? Mom, Dad, that's insane. What did you do with it? I took a deep breath. I donated it to a charity for kids who don't have enough kids like we were. But I also used it to test them. I pretended it was a business deal, got them to show their greed, and I recorded it all. They've been taking money that should have been ours, like Grandma's ring, to fund Sophie's fancy school. I'm suing Claire to make sure you and Noah get your fair share. Noah's face crumpled. Why do they love Sophie more? My heart broke. I pulled him into a hug. They don't, Noah. They're wrong. You and Emma are my everything, and I fought for you. Emma's jaw tightened, but she nodded. You got them back. Good. They hurt us. Her words were a lifeline. I hugged them both, promising a new start. With the property sold, I'd kept a small portion, $200,000, to buy us a new home. A cozy bungalow in a quiet Portland neighborhood with a yard for Noah's soccer and a corner for Emma's art. The rest went to the charity, which I named Bright Futures, dedicated to kids overlooked by their families, just like mine had been. The lawsuit against Claire moved fast. Jamie's lawyer friend filed the paperwork, using Mike's evidence to prove Claire's financial manipulation. The court froze Sophie's trust fund, and a judge ordered it redistributed equally among the grandchildren Emma, Noah, and Sophie. Claire fought back, her texts venomous. You're destroying Sophie's life, Alex. You'll pay. But the evidence was ironclad, and her threats fell flat. Mark, her husband, distanced himself, likely to save his law firm from the fallout. Sophie, caught in the middle, stopped speaking to Claire, moving in with a friend's family to finish high school. I felt a pang for her. She was a kid. Not the villain, but Claire's choices weren't her daughter's fault. Mom reached out a month later, her voice trembling over the phone. Alex, I didn't know how much Claire was taking, she said. I thought I was helping Sophie. I was wrong about you, about Emma and Noah. Can we talk? I hesitated. Her apology felt genuine, but years of favoritism didn't vanish with a phone call. I'll meet you for coffee, I said finally. But this is for Emma and Noah, not you. They decide if they want you in their lives. We met at a cafe, and Mom's face was etched with regret. She admitted Claire had spun lies about my failures as a parent, convincing her and Dad that Sophie needed their support more. "I see you now, Alex," she said, tears in her eyes. "You're stronger than I ever gave you credit for." I didn't forgive her fully, not yet, but I agreed to let her visit Emma and Noah, supervised, to rebuild trust. Dad, though, doubled down. He sent a curt email, siding with Claire and calling my actions vindictive. I blocked his number. He'd made his choice. The biggest surprise was Sophie. She showed up at our new house one evening, unannounced, her eyes red. "I didn't know what Mom was doing," she said, her voice shaking. "I thought Grandma and Grandpa just liked me more." "I'm sorry, Alex." For Emma and Noah, I invited her in, cautious but moved. "It's not your fault, Sophie," I said. "You're welcome here, but you need to make it right with them." She nodded, and when Emma and Noah came home, she apologized to them directly. Emma was wary, but Noah, ever forgiving, offered her a cookie from the bakery. It wasn't a full reconciliation, but it was a start. Sophie started volunteering at Bright Futures, helping kids like her cousins, and I saw a spark of the person she could be without Claire's influence. Months later, as we settled into our new home, I watched Emma paint a mural in her room, bright waves crashing on a beach, a nod to the one we'd been kicked out of. Noah practiced soccer in the yard, his laughter echoing. The bakery was thriving, thanks to a small business loan I'd secured with the leftover funds, and Bright Futures was changing lives, with Emma and Noah helping at every event. One night, as we sat around our new kitchen table, Emma looked at me, her eyes steady. "You fought for us, Mom, Dad," she said. "That's all we ever needed." I smiled, my heart full. "You're my family, Emma. You and Noah. That's enough." I thought back to that night at the beach house, when Mom handed me $100 and told us to leave. I'd felt small, invisible, erased. But the $5 million inheritance had given me more than money, it had given me power. Power to protect my kids, to expose my family's betrayal, to build a future on our terms. Claire was facing legal consequences, Dad had chosen his side, and Mom was trying to make amends. Sophie was finding her way, and my kids were thriving. As I looked at Emma's mural, I realized I'd broken the cycle. My parents' favoritism, Claire's greed, they didn't define us anymore. We were free, not just from their toxicity, but from the need to prove ourselves. The fight had been worth it, not for revenge, but for the life we'd built. And that was the greatest victory of all.